Sí.
Pero ahora está ya grabando.
Sí, ya lo sé.
Vale.
Pero yo ya lo dejo y ya. Cool.
Given they collect user stories and all they do is the bare minimum to keep things down.
I'm trying. As soon as I get back and get settled, I'm gonna have to practice.
Well, you were on a slide about promotions. Your name was mentioned.
Oh, I missed it. Damn it.
My new title is manager.
Oh, fancy.
And I'm currently in charge of. So, Julie Richard has innovation and quality. He's profitable. Daniel Keith, he's the new. So, Chris Meyer, Gene, Ron, Colin.
Well done. I am all. Hello.
Is that the Hola Chica nod?
Yes.
Is that the
Hola.
Hola.
Would you like to know about being an admin to a consultant?
Yeah.
The life you're living, you mean?
Well, it's good to get someone else's perspective because I don't feel the time. Yeah, it's just like it's good to step back and how you do it.
I feel like we should have music. I found a Barcelona playlist on Spotify, and it was exactly that. I put it on yesterday, and Josh was like, "There's so much oof going on here." I was like, "I don't know, this is beach mix, Barcelona beach mix." There we go.
So I'm actually recording the slides and your voice, but the voice is not completely recorded there. So
Okay, yes. We did a sound test earlier, and I was sing talking, and he's like, "Is that how you're gonna talk?" I was like, "No." Like, are you gonna do that the whole time? Here. Carrie Townsend, she's an MVP. I like how you're on brand. Very nicely done.
After this is over, connect with us.
We're gonna what?
We're going to recruit.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Where do you
No, I love you. I love all of you.
Okay, that's so.
And it was actually doesn't understand it. That's fine.
Yeah, see, we did it. And we're awesome. And we have other
Yes. No.
Ooh, let's get started. Yay. Fantastic.
Where do you want me, dear?
Be there. I'll be in charge of the clicker.
Do you know when there is like 5 minutes left?
Yeah. Is that what that is?
Yes.
I couldn't figure that out. I just thought it was
kind
like
of manual.
it was very like
So-
soccer. I was like, did I just get yellow carded?
And then when it's done, I just
Okay. Perfect. Hola. That's all I got.
Hola.
Well, and I just keep slipping into Italian the last 2 days. Josh was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I can't help it." I open my mouth and mi scusi comes out. Yeah, you are from Nashville.
I'm from Nashville. That is true, but I don't sound like it.
No, you don't.
At least not to me. Well, you can see. Yes.
Qué buena pregunta, no sé. Espera un momento. Así. Esta de allí del fondo vas allí, a la derecha y a la derecha.
Are we ready, Laura?
Wait a couple more minutes. There's like,
Sure.
This one.
Oh, yeah. I like that. It's just for me. You get nothing. You have to stand over there. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I think it's the first session, huh? Well, at least in this room. So if you didn't know, this is from awesome admin to awesome consultant and a light show.
And if you're afraid of the dark, this is my room to be in.
Okay, so if whoever doesn't know me, I'm Melinda Smith. I had to write down all the things because I inevitably forget what I do. I've been working on the platform for about 6 years. I began as an admin. I was kind of an accidental admin, and then worked through that, and then became a consultant. And now I'm with Blue Wolf. Both Jason and I are. I co-host the 2WIT podcast. I'm on the core planning team for Witness Success. I co-lead the Denver user group. And a Salesforce MVP.
And hi, I'm Jason Guthrie. My background started as a business analyst, IT project manager, and stumbled into a Salesforce project and wound up not running fast enough and getting tagged as the admin. After I did that for about 5 years, I went to be a consultant. I currently have been a solution architect within Blue Wolf and another small company. Blue Wolf from Nashville, Tennessee, in the United States. I currently, the new title is Managing Director of Architecture and Technical Services.
So long. It's so long.
Yeah, I know. I'm not even really sure what I do anymore. I manage the people that do Salesforce at this point. That said, I'm still a very hardcore Salesforce advocate. I still remember what it was like to be an admin, the transition. I really, really, really like it and believe in it. And if you're an admin and you want to be a consultant, you're in the right place.
And if anyone knows me, I'm a big fan of GIFs. You're just going to see them in this. It's just how it is. I had a couple of people ask me once if moving from admin to consultant was like the next move. I don't think it's necessarily the next, it's just different. And that's what we're going to talk about is some steps to success. But I don't think it's necessarily the progression. It's just a change.
Okay, so there are 5 steps to success when you make the transition. A lot of these are the same things that you do with your time today. We start with time management. The way you manage your time is different. When you have a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 job as an admin, your time boxed Monday through Friday, and you have a set amount of work. When you're a consultant, time is money.
Yep. We were going to talk about advising, kind of the SOW, if you guys aren't familiar with statements of work, communication, and then the stuff that, maybe others won't tell you. How many of you guys have heard the phrase Sabwa? This is a Mike Gerholt statement. So he works for Salesforce now, but it's a Salesforce admin by walking around. And it's always kind of stuck with me because I had spoken with some other admins that had made the move to consultant, and Toya Gatewood specifically had said, practicing Sabwa is you are kind of a consultant in training. You are getting user stories. You are talking to stakeholders in whatever project or whatever product you're going to roll out. You're doing iterations, you're doing deployments, you're managing expectations. So you've been doing this, but maybe for just one client. So if you have any fear of not having the skills as an admin, you do. You just need to have them for more than one client.
As an admin, I'm trying to remember if it's my turn.
Yes, the key differentiators. Jason, would you like to share?
Sure. As an admin, you're going to own your work. You're the gatekeeper. They come to you and say, I need this, or I want this, and they turn it over to you and execute. You are basically the final decision maker. You are the person that decides how it's done. As a consultant, you wind up being this person for many orgs in many different situations, and you're not going to know all of these orgs the way you do, the way you know your own when you're the only administrator. Oftentimes you're going to walk in and it's already set up. It's been managed for years. There are fields, workflows, formulas, reports. You have no idea what they're there for because no one documented what it's there for.
So the 5 takeaways, so let's start with those. So managing your time. Jason mentioned a little bit that it's kind of a critical piece, and kind of why we talk about it first is as an admin, you have the 9 to 5, you have the 8 to 5, it's your org. Maybe you're more productive on a Wednesday and you kind of put things off. It doesn't really work like that when you're a consultant. You're billable. And I worked in a place that had me bill time in every 15-minute increments. It stressed me the heck out. I don't do that anymore. But you have to make your plan of attack, and the whole analogy of measuring twice and cutting once. You need to think through your day. Kind of the stress of watching the clock can work in your favor. You can push yourself and to do the hard stuff first. I don't know, maybe do the key piece that's probably going to take you a little bit longer, and then maybe throw, some solutioning or some page layouts in the end, since that won't take very long. I think for managing your time as well, a lot of you as a consultant might work from home. So that was kind of that's a shift if you're not used to working from home. I've had a lot of people say, oh, I could never do it. I could never do it. I get so distracted. But I mean, I love it now. But you need to figure out what works for you. Like get up, get ready, go to a space that you work. If you don't have a home office, try not to sit on the couch in front of the TV. I've made that mistake a lot. And create your own boundaries. I mean, I talk a lot in other avenues about healthy boundaries with work and life, but you need to make sure that you have your boundaries. Like if you are going to take your lunch and flip on the TV, just turn it off at a certain time. Also have the boundaries that if you work from home, it doesn't mean you have to work 12 hours a day. You don't have to be accessible. Try not to set that expectation for yourself. It's kind of hard to go backwards.
The one big difference is you become, you're going to be advising as opposed to taking orders or taking requests. You're no longer the employee. They're hiring you and paying you experts. They assume when you come in that you will know much more about it than they do. They are very seriously paying you as a consultant to tell them what to do, what's the best practice, what are the solutions for my problems. To that end, you need to be confident, you need to be sure, you need to be willing to counsel your client away from bad decisions. Often the client will say, well, you've got to have this. That's probably not the best idea. Let's talk through what you really need. Being sure and confident in your statements. If you're a consultant, you have the certifications, if you have the experience, you really do probably know more than they. They may ask you questions. They may try to poke holes in your statements. Stand your ground. In the States, we have young consultants, new consultants that will end the sentence with, they will say in a very British way, they will say, "What do you think?" Or they will end it with the word "right." In that essence, you're asking them to tell you what is best. Don't do that. Work on your presentation. But in the end, no matter what you do, no matter how sure you are, no matter how much you try to pull them away from the bad decisions, they make the decisions.
I don't know if Jason told me, but I had a boss as a consultant that said that the consultant says no. You don't need to always do that as an admin. Your boss is like, go implement this, go implement Aptus, fine, whatever. But as a consultant, they will try and bushwhack you and pretend like they know more, but you really need to be a good advisor. I mean, and if they make a poor decision, I mean, they'll still pay for it.
To that, we have clients that have been using Salesforce longer than she and I have been working on it. I've been working on it for about 11 years. And I've got a client right now, their entire team knows way more about it than I do. So you'll run into those people.
Yeah.
For the most part, they don't.
Yeah, you'll know by little statements. I was going to tell a story. It's stupid. Moving on. All right, so SOW scope of work. So one of the most tedious things I found becoming a consultant is I'm a very bullet person, checklist. I just want to do it. I take brevity to like a whole new level. So as a consultant, your scope of work, your tasks become your deliverables. You're going to have statements of scopes of work. You're going to have user stories. You'll have many documentations, process flows, maybe functional specs. Those were really, they're there for your client and to cover your ass, really. Because if you refer back and they try and argue, especially on longer projects, it does help. Plus, it helps them understand where they're going. I don't like to do it, but it is essential and it's key. So all of your tasks, your to-do list, document, write it down. If it's not in the statement of work, you don't necessarily have to be that person that's combative and says it's not in the statement of work, but you can guide them back to, that would be a change request. That would cost more money. Bring up money and they'll usually drop it. The backlog situation, as an admin, you can, like I talked about, like maybe you're more productive on a Wednesday. You won't necessarily have a backlog, or you will have a parking lot to talk with them later. But if you see something that's going to take a lot of extra time or it's not part of the SOW, bring it up sooner than later, because the client needs to know if you're going to need more time, and they'll need to know why. So you have to answer a lot of whys of what you're doing with your time, but you just kind of get over it. I was a little irritated at first. Someone wanted me to give them break down in 15-minute increments. You don't need to know what I do, but they do. They want to know what they're paying for.
To go with that, communication, effective communication with your clients is very, very important. One of the things that we teach young consultants to do is to record themselves speaking, count the pauses, listen to the words that they say. Many people in our organization, when they start to use the word right, the end, or they have certain inflection in their voice, they start every sentence with the word so, as in, so, blah, 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 blah. It's not confidence building. So you need to be very careful and very precise and prescriptive about the way you speak when talking with a client. You will need to explain yourself. And to that end, one of the things that we do as a best practice is that if it has a description field and it's a custom field or formula or workflow or object, there needs to be something in there explaining why it's there. You're also going to document it in your functional specs or your technical specifications, in your user story requirements matrix, but it needs to be in the system because documentation could get lost. This is that laboriously detailed about what you're doing. Because you'll be gone and 5 years later, some admin will go, what the heck is this for? When they're bumping up against limitations on fields on an object. Basically, this is a rehash from earlier. You can document, you can communicate, you can be as professional as you need to be. You can do everything you need to do, but again, in the end, the client makes the decisions.
It all sounds a little like negative. I don't think we mean it that way. We just mean it like it's just a big shift. You become the expert in the room. When I became a solution architect, I really thought I was just going to be like, bink, 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 and do my little work, and I didn't really have to do any client stuff. But when you have, like, the way our organization is set up, we have project managers and engagement managers that manage the client and don't necessarily know the technical side. So you do end up running a lot of projects. So, I mean, unless you are writing straight code, you will be a project manager and engagement manager. You're going to manage expectations of the clients. One mistake I made recently, thought about it, because I think if you get away from some habits. When you're trying to please the client, I made the mistake of doing something really quick on site, on screen. So when you clients sometimes struggle to see value because consultants usually, we charge a lot. And when you do something like just create an object with a few fields in front of them, it does you a disservice. So don't go out of your way too much to please on site. Like I knew it would just have been easier for them to have the object, but to do it on site, it can cause a little dissension, especially if they're unfamiliar with Salesforce. They're like, well, why am I paying you? That literally took you 2 minutes. But I know that in my head and I know what to do, they didn't. So just, be careful with the overly pleasing the client.
And to go with that, I mean, one of the best skills that people learn is when a client says, can you add an object with a couple of, can we do this? And you, in your head, you go, that's a custom object, 2 fields, we're ready to go, we can do it in 5 minutes. The best thing you can do for yourself is say, well, let's get all the requirements around that, document it, put it in the backlog list, validate it and prioritize it against all the other stuff, even though you know it's only going to take you 5 minutes to go into a sandbox, create it, put it up, and throw it on the screen. Right?
Yeah. So all the rest. So these are the fun little takeaways. Again, you guys have.
I got to call out the gift.
Let It Go. I could have done Frozen because we all know Let It Go is Frozen, but I chose Fight Club instead. So my first. This is true. I'm already ruining it. Even I just gave you with adding something ad hoc. This was a new, quick turn client I tried to make. We're selling this new product. And in the beginning, it's hard to let go because I know how they can be better. Like, they need more automation. They need another object, and you have to look. It's not what they're paying for. They're not going to do a change request. You can advise, set them off with a org workbook, and told them ad nauseum, if you don't build in some automations with your opportunity stages, nobody's going to use 7 stages on an object if you don't build in any automation. But you have to learn that they may not listen to you and they may just not. You have to let it go. And it's hard, especially as an admin when you own the org. You just want to say, but you're doing it wrong. But probably shouldn't.
Well, and to support that, we all know the best practice is configuration on code, right? Sometimes the clients, they want the wow of code, even though they say no code. So as a solution, as a consultant, often what you do is you present the best. One thing is learn from others' mistakes.
Yeah.
We've been doing this a while. We've got lots of mistakes. Go to your user group, talk to other people there, learn from their mistakes. When you become a consultant, talk to the other people that you work with. Hear what from him. And they often, a lot of companies and organizations like ours have a wins, learns, and changes sets of documents to read from, to learn a bit from.
You'll have an unhappy client. I had the benefit of having the most unhappy client very first at Blue Wolf. I was new on the team, and so was the manager. I can't think of their name right now. Yeah, it was, she was nice to me, but it went so sour that when I saw her at a conference and she gave me a hug, I was like, oh, you're actually hugging me. Just learn from it. They're not always gonna be happy, and it's not personal. Maybe it's not your design. Maybe it's back in contracting. Maybe it's their IT team, but you will have a client that's just cranky and unhappy, and just learn from it. Pretend the client is gonna be yours again in 6 months. How can you do it better? How can you communicate better? How can, you can execute on what they want? They're just not gonna be happy. I've had clients that it seems like they don't want us there, and I want to say, but you paid me to be here. So I just know that you'll have that and learn from it and try not to take it too personal.
The next two really go hand in hand. Being self-driven and invest in your skills. Your skills are much more than just Salesforce. Your skills as a professional are, as we mentioned earlier, communication, presentation, working to learn how to have difficult conversations with your client. Where you have to tell them no, or where you have to go in and say, we can't do what you want us to do in the time that you're paying for. Going to colleagues and saying, hey, this is a problem. We need to get on this and solve it. Buy books.
Google. I like the Googles.
Really good books on having critical conversations. Self-development, not a self-help kind of thing, but self-development.
I also like those. I also like self-help.
Well, they
And if that's not your bag and you have the hierarchy that someone's the project manager, engagement manager, just make them do it. Like if they're there for that, make them do it, or tell them, I'm new. I am not comfortable telling them. Then just, have someone more senior do it.
And so all of those things are things that you need to take on because no one will do it for you. You need to own that as a professional for your own development.
So we talked a little bit about managing distractions. The one little kind of personal story I wanted to put in here is my very first consulting firm was not Blue Wolf. It was a very small company. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was new. I was remote and they weren't. And I just felt like an island. I felt like I made a bad decision. I was depressed. I didn't have anyone to talk to. But I also didn't reach out because I thought, well, they hired me as a consultant. They must think I'm smarter than I really am. So I'm not going to ask any questions. So I spent a lot of time being an island, and it sucked. And it's awful. Then I worked for Blue Wolf, where there's, I have 14 G chats going on, and I started reaching out to the community more. You guys heard about the community in Holly's keynote. I mean, truly, strangers are invested in your success for whatever beautiful reason. Just if you feel alone, you are working from home, you're new to this, just talk to someone. If it's not within your company, reach out to the community or go to a user group. We have all been there as a new consultant, feeling like that imposter syndrome gremlin gets on your shoulder and you think you don't know what you're doing, but you really do. So it's good to have a support system and not try and do it all by yourself, because it will make you feel like you maybe made a wrong choice and maybe you should go back to being an admin. I think that was what I said on my first cranky client in tears. I should be an admin. This is too hard.
My experience is the exact same. My first consulting company was a small company. They were all working from an office in Albuquerque, Mexico. I was remote in Nashville, Tennessee. I doubted my skill set. I doubted my abilities. I didn't reach out. I isolated. Eventually, at Blue Wolf, same thing. Community, talking all the time, people supporting me. And it's that way at Blue Wolf. I have no experience with other organizations, but as a consultant, you often get that.
And you may not get it from your company, but just, again, the community's there, Twitter. You can ping me. I probably don't have the answers, but we can talk through it. Maybe have a virtual coffee. More gifts. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Any particular questions about making the move, or you've made the move and now you're freaking out?
Well, I have one.
Yes.
How much time do you spend on documenting stuff, like writing both requirements and user guides maybe?
I've spent a month before I've actually gotten into an org before. on requirements and gathering, and it's really like it slows you down, but it is such good backup. Even on this project that is just it's a mature org, and we're trying to roll into Lightning and do some data cleanup and some business processes. I mean, we'll still spend another week documenting things. So I mean, it can be a week to a month or more.
Depending on the project.
Well, it
Yeah.
also depends on the role. I mean,
Oh, that's
in
true.
our organization, the solution architect is the person that is the face of the project to the client. That is the person that does the overall design. We have consultants, BAs, senior consultants that do a lot of the note taking, a lot of the scribing, a lot of the user story and requirement documentation. We generally say, as a solution architect, for every day of business process review or requirements gathering, you have a day of writing. If you're smart, you hedge it and do it early on, so you're doing it as you go and you're not left needing to write a 400-page document. It also depends on the methodology. If you're going with an agile methodology, it's much shorter. If you're going with a Lagile or a waterfall methodology, it's going to be strung out.
I'm not good at any of those. We use some of them. I'm just doing the work and the documentation, so don't get hung up too much. What were you gonna say?
No, I just agree with what you say, the documentation has changed, and where you come in, because I don't necessarily always come at the beginning of a project. You might come in and once you're into like a cadence of delivery, then you're documenting the pieces that you're individually doing.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
If you document well, then if someone pops in for a few hours, they don't have to have a huge, knowledge transfer. The documentation's there. It's a good point.
The other two factors that come into play that came to mind are your client. If your client has a strong technical management office or project management office, and they have their own templates and their own requirements, you're going to be asked to fulfill those. If your delivery methodology is that you have someone on site collecting information, and then the development and the build is done off-site, where you will not see these people every day, your documentation will be very heavy, very prescriptive, very detailed, and you'll spend a whole lot more time on it.
Is anybody thinking about making the move? Has anyone made the move recently?
I have another question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I wonder about how much code skills do you need in order to perform a better work as a consultant?
I don't write a lick of code.
I taught myself. I was a programmer a long time ago, and I can read it, can't write it. So if you want to be a consulting developer or a technical architect, a lot.
Yeah.
If you want to be a consultant and a solution architect,
When you can ease into it, you can come in and consult and config, and then, if you want to keep moving down the code path. But I don't think it's mutually exclusive to be a consultant.
the other thing, think of, if you want to learn to write code, think of it as learning a language. Just like you might learn French or German. German would be a good example. The grammar of German is hard enough, right? But if you learn languages easy, it's not that difficult to pick up, especially the tag-based languages like these.
I know it's all relative, but how much experience do you think you need as an admin before you're kind of like ready to take on multiple organizations at the same time?
I mean, we have people that have no admin experience. I will say, and one of the reasons we wanted to do that is I think you have a unique insight when you've been an admin before to be a consultant, because you know how you have to hand off the org. But we have people that come in brand spanking new.
We have people straight out of university that come in, we train them. We might also prefer that in a lot of ways.
Why?
Because we can teach you how to do it our way.
One of us.
Do it.
We've run out of time. Does anybody have any other final thoughts, questions, feelings? Sweet. Thank you.
Both of our, you can find us both on LinkedIn, you can find us both on Twitter.
That's where I live.
That's where she lives, I don't live there. You can shoot us emails, ask us questions privately if you prefer.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
Thank
it's possible to get this presentation from.
Laura?
Yes, we'll send, so there will be a YouTube channel, we will post all the sessions, we will have.
Great.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Sorry, we moved on to Tower.
Oh, yeah.
Can you do me a favor and
Yes,
send
love.
me the slides to this thing that we should have here? No. Yeah. So can you send them there, the slides? So should be.
I just downloaded them yesterday.
Should be Rimoles Sala 4. Yeah, it looks super good. I really like this spontaneous thing. It looks so spontaneous. It looks amazing.
It's on slides, it's
Like this.
Well, last night when I was somewhere over the Atlantic while I was trying to go to sleep, I was thinking through this presentation and what I was saying.
So they are that already?
Completely forgot.
They're
I downloaded them yesterday.
cool. Perfect. Thank you so
You're welcome.
much.
Now I'm gonna take my dongle, but if
Sure.
someone needs one, you let